We have Ryan Sanders from CalFreight. He's the Director of Brokerage Operations. Thank you so much for being with us today, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, for having me.
I guess like to kick it off, would love to just learn more about what is CalFreight as well as what do you do at CalFreight, if you can share a bit more with us.
Sure. Yeah, CalFreight's asset-based brokerage, formed in '89 as strictly brokerage, and over the last 33 years have moved into the asset side of trucking as well as warehousing. Um, so currently operating about maybe 12 brokerage terminals throughout the country. We're operating about 225 tractors, about 260 drivers, and we have about 500,000 square feet of warehousing here in Northern California.
Nice, amazing. How long have you been working at CalFreight so far?
So I've been at CalFreight. I began in my teens. I worked in our warehousing as a teenager during my summers. I would sweep floors, picked up pallets, began to drive forklift a bit during those times. After college, which was probably about 15 years ago, is when I really began to work for our corporate. Started off in our brokerage division here in Ribbon, California, just trying to learn the business from the ground up, and have moved into other things with our tech and sales and strategic involvement within the company, since that time.
What brought you into this business?
We're a family-owned company. My father started the company in '89. So I guess he was just as growing up again, kind of working in the warehousing. I hadn't really planned on working for the family company, but after college, it seemed like the right fit. I got a degree in entrepreneurship, so I could help kind of expand some different divisions within the company as well, contribute. So really more of my father, and then as I began my journey in logistics, I started to have a passion for it, and so it's been great. So I've been able to work with him, and then my brother also works for the company. His office is right next to me, as well as my dad's. He runs our port division. So yeah, we've kind of really made it a family kind of venture at this point. So that's probably the main reason I got into it.
That's really awesome that you guys are running this as a whole family. I'm sure that's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Really,
it is.
really curious about what were the early days like when you first started? Obviously, I'm sure CalFreight has grown a lot over the years, and you guys have added additional divisions. But tell us about the early days. We'd love to kind of like see like when you first started. What was CalFreight like?
Sure. It was a lot of paper, so it was all very, very manual process, even from our warehousing and how we kept track of records to our brokerage to our accounting. I mean, everything was paper. We had a full-time person that just filed, for us. So I'd say the beginning was especially in terms of brokerage back when I began maybe 15, 16 years ago. I don't recall exactly. I mean, load boards were out there, but not near as prevalent. Hey, we used to use the Leonard's Guidebook. Not sure if you ever heard of that, but that was a massive book of probably 1,500 pages, and it had every trucking company listed in it and their services and how much equipment they had. So when we were looking for capacity, we'd open these books and we're calling these carriers, based on what's in there. So it was a lot of legwork, a lot more work, then than it is, now, to book freight. So even from a process of an admin accounting process, we were constantly shuffling paper, a lot of redundancies within the company. I wouldn't say not a lot of checks and balances on, reporting. Say, billing, for instance. I mean, hey, you can run your own bill reports from your TMS, but paper is getting shuffled back and forth. It would go to 3 or 4 different desks where it went back to the biller. So even if there are ways to track it down, at that point now, hey, you got to call, go get the invoice again. So, those are kind of my biggest memories of kind of, in the beginning, kind of how it was. So just a lot of tedious legwork, not necessarily a lot of computer work at that time.
Yeah, you also mentioned, I remember you also mentioned before the podcast that you also worked in a warehouse a little bit when you first started. Can you tell us a bit more about your experience, just like working in a warehouse as, with physical labor as well?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I started sweeping. We would load a lot of box cars in our warehousing, so we would take product in, and we'd have to take it off pallets, and then it would go onto slip sheets, and then from the slip sheets, it'd go into the box cars. And so in my younger days, I'd be lifting pallets, from the ground, stacking them up 10 high. Um, and then again, a lot of paper. We had our clipboards with the orders for the day to pick. Now of course we've moved into. I mean, we have each driver has iPads, and the orders all come on to from that standpoint. Um, so yeah, I mean, outside of that, the operations of a warehouse. I mean, we don't have driverless lifts. I mean, we do have all electric lifts now. We did move into that a long time ago, but the operational part, it's fairly similar, in terms of that. So I mean, um, but but yeah, I mean, the warehouse is great. It wasn't really where I wanted to be myself. It was a lot of repetitiveness, on a day-to-day basis. So I wanted to come and kind of learn the other aspects of the business.
But I'm sure, that experience of, sweeping the floors, really working, physical labor, I think that probably helped you build a lot of empathy, for the business and be able to help you, do a better job, when you came into the office.
Sure. No, it did a lot, and especially in terms of just understanding. I mean, we deal with shippers and receivers daily, and being able to understand how to properly load trucks, how to distribute the weight, the hardships that they endure on a day-to-day basis. Whereas if you haven't been in the warehouse, you wouldn't know. So it really allows you to, have a full view of everything that's going on, and be able to have that empathy as well for the warehousing, and to be able to jump in and kind of, fix problems as well. Understanding that full circle.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the things that really stood out to me, from our conversation before the podcast recording was that in terms of how much, technology that you guys have adopted over the years, from the paper pushing early days of CalFreight to where it is right now, 200 plus fleets, 12 terminals with a brokerage arm and asset-based arm. I'm curious to know what are some of the key decisions that you guys made during this period that had really changed the trajectory of the company.
Sure. I mean, if we're talking from a tech standpoint, which I think a lot of where we've gone and how we've been able to scale would come from tech. Our journey with tech probably began maybe 10 years ago, and we began with our administrative and accounting departments. We moved away from all of the paperwork. We created an online database to our TMS with OCR included, to really get rid of a lot of redundancies and allow us to be able to scale. So that was the first real big project we did, and that probably took about a year to get that off the ground. And it took some convincing with me and my tech guy. With even with my father and with our COO, because they're older. My dad's 65. So they didn't really see the value of the technology, at that point in time. But it's allowed us to grow probably by 6 times in the last 10 years. And I believe we have only had to add one person to our accounting, and a lot of that's just really due to the tech.
Oh, wow, that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, so I mean, I think that's been huge, and that allowed us to scale and allowed us to go in and start opening more terminals as well. With having that online document imaging, and the transparency from them to us. I think that was huge. So we did that. And then we decided to move in a little bit more towards from a brokerage standpoint into our brokerage kind of back end, our carrier safety, our carrier signups. As a company at this point in time, we sign up 500 plus carriers a month, and we probably have 28,000 carriers in our database. Um, and to manually try and keep track of that and the daily updates the FMCSA throws out, and really make sure we're utilizing and vetting carriers that are fit to be on the road. We really had to move into more of an automated, standpoint. So we partnered up with RMIS, who's fairly well known now. Most people are using them at this point, but we went in, we fully customized the site to meet our safety standards, our vetting processes, and then we fully integrated it with our TMS. And we integrated with our TMS so that we kind of control the narrative, if you will, with our brokers. We needed a way to expand our brokerage and know that we had control over the carriers that they were putting on their orders. So this is probably one of the better projects I think we had in the last 10 years. And that probably took about 12 months as well. But so we moved in, from that aspect, and then our next project has really been trying to grab more of the customer or the customer and vendor facing applications. You have Uber out there, you got JB Hunt with JB360, CH Robinson, of course, all very big names, but they have a lot of outward facing applications as well that's driving a lot of value. So the one we've been working on for probably the last 8 months, and we're live now but still testing, is with Parade. And Parade is supposed to be a carrier management tool that's giving us outward facing load boards to our carriers. It's bringing in a lot of automation where they can there's these book now features, which a lot of people have heard of, you're seeing out there, where it automates our carrier process from start to finish. So it's bringing in a lot of cool features. In terms of that, it's bringing in some good internal automation for us as well as some nice customer-facing applications. So, we've been choosy with the projects that we do. I think the challenge is finding the right applications that fit your company. And as we talked about too, Kevin, was having a TMS system that really integrates with pretty much everything. So it's hard to build your system, but if you can find the right applications and integrate with your system, I think that's the name of the game right now.
Absolutely. It sounds like you have been very methodical about finding these different technology applications and piecing them together. And, because at the end of the day, each project, it is a big investment. So I think being methodical about like which partner that you choose, I think is a really important decisions. Just for the listeners out there, curious to know, what TMS are you currently using right now?
We use TruckMate, which is a Trimble system, a Canadian-based provider. But yeah, it's not a web-based software. There's some really good brokerage softwares out there like McLeod, and what we have though is a sophisticated systems. We have several different divisions. A lot of the web-based TMS systems are really geared more toward like the brokerage end of things, but it's not incorporating everything we need. So great fit for us. Our tech guys have done a lot of customization with it over the last 10 years, and again, hey, it integrates fairly seamlessly with everything. And I think when you're talking about tech, and depending on where, some people are smaller, they don't have tech guys that are sitting there on staff. But I think what's important is to see where your problems are and how you can take the manual process and equate it to a tech process that's fairly seamless. And again, I use the word, but really it does allow you to scale, because you're taking a lot of that human element and even the human error of things out of play there.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's really cool to hear that you guys recently adopted Parade as well. Anthony is a good friend of mine. Anthony, if you're listening to this, I just want to give you a quick shout out. You're doing great work out there. I think the capacity management tool provided by Parade, I think that has really been a game changer for a lot of brokers, especially, with some of the newer brokerages, like Convoy and Uber Freight out there, being able to really streamline a lot of the processes, in terms of matching the right load to the right driver, especially for larger brokers, like once you hit scale like CalFreight. So I think it's really cool that, products like Parade can come into play.
Yeah, it does, and they integrate too, even like with DAT. But from what our internal processes were currently compared to what they will be parade outside of a lot of the nice carrier facing stuff, it's taken away several redundancies that I found in our processes.
Obviously, you guys have made a lot of, very seems like very good strategic decisions with RMIS, with Parade, and as well as the TMS, that started 10 years ago. But I'm just curious, looking back from your experience, what are some of the hardest decisions that you recall having to make?
I think the more challenging decisions that I myself have made are really the decisions that we take in terms of our technology. And again, I work hand in hand with our with the leader of our tech team, but you never know at the end of the day, what's going to work, and you end up spending a lot of time. I mean, months and sometimes over a year on things, and you don't know how your team's going to react. You don't know if you're going to get the buy-in, and you're already putting in a lot of money to these things. So I think on our tech projects, those are probably some of the harder decisions that I've had to make from that standpoint.
With your journey so far with Calfrey, with all the success that you guys have, I'm curious if you have come across someone that's really influential, during your journey, someone that has taught you a lot or mentored you. I think I have been blessed with meeting a lot of good folks along my journey. So I'm curious, what has this been like for you in terms of your learning experience and finding the mentors around you?
Sure. I mean, my biggest mentor would probably be my father. So I mean, he's done a lot of good things in his life. So being able to work with him, he always, when I began his brokerage, my cubicle was right in front of his office, and he has a window there. So I would always listen in into his conversations as well. But he always kind of told me, it's like he listened to me, as I'm talking, and then throughout the years, I started to learn how to solve problems and really kind of push through the bad. So he would be my biggest mentor, in terms of where I'm at now, and we've had some other good ones as well. There's a lady who runs our warehouse. Her name is Patrice. She's been with us for probably about 25 years. And so I worked under her in like high school and college. So, she saw me, as probably a bratty, high school kid coming in, sweeping floors, no worth ethic. And then throughout the years, we've become good friends, but she's a very, very hard worker. And she's done a lot of good with our company and kind of stuck with my dad, through the good and the bad. So she's a mentor. And our COO now, who's jumped in with us about 10 years ago. He had a lot of experience in the industry, especially the asset side, which is when we really began to grow our asset side, is when he came on with us about 10 years ago. So I've learned a lot from him, from a finance perspective, from the asset perspective. And then, my brother too. My brother, he's younger than me. He's 2 years younger than I am, but he's got like real calm demeanor about himself. So he helps me stay like level-headed, with decisions. And so I think in that capacity, he has kind of mentored my mental abilities, in hard situations. Um, so this would probably be like the four main I could think of there off the top of my head.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for any of us to be, where we are without really meeting these mentors along the way. On the note of, transitioning from a pure broker to an asset-based, trucking fleet, I think that's actually a really interesting transition I noticed about, Calfreight's journey. Can you tell us a bit more about that in terms of like why did you guys make that decision and what are some of the challenges that came with, that decision when you guys made it during the time?
So we, in the early 2000s, we did form an asset MC, but we employed owner ops. We probably ran about 40 owner operators. They mainly did rail and port drayage here in Northern California. And he initially transitioned into that because he brought on a minority partner at that time who was a president at a larger fleet. So he began that journey in the early 2000s. Um, and then we brought in our new COO about 10 years ago. We kind of saw, and I won't go into the reasons why, but we saw some flags in terms of where maybe the market was moving in terms of owner ops, a lot of gray areas, in the owner op model, in terms of how it's operated versus how it should be operated, which again is a lot of the reasoning that that California's doing AB5. But at that time, we decided we were going to transition from owner ops and get into the carrier side. We're going to acquire our own equipment, our own trailers, and everything would be ran through company drivers. So yeah, we began that about 10 years ago. And it's really been a good fit for us too, in terms of having a full circle view. When we combine our warehousing, our brokerage, and the carrier side, our teams have a good view of the industry as a whole, as opposed to just one side or the other. Our carrier side does do stuff for our brokerage side, so it is commingled. It's more separated than commingled, but they do jump in to help out. But yeah, I think that made us. I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of there, but a lot of customers want to see an asset side of things, and we kind of talked about that a little bit as well. I think that's helped us, especially in today's market. It's hard for brokerage firms to jump in with customers, especially big company customers, being strictly a brokerage. A lot of guys want to see an asset backed company, and for a couple of reasons. One, I mean, they like them to go on their assets because you do have more control. As from a brokerage standpoint, you're just one more party deep into the situation where you really don't have that same control. But customers want to see that you're fiscally responsible. They want to see that you have capital backing. They want to know that you're going to pay your carriers on time. If something happens, you're going to have money to take care of the problem. So I think that was another reason we kind of jumped into it as well.
Especially for fleets that are growing. I noticed some of the fleet owners I talked to, they're also thinking about opening up a brokerage arm. I'm curious in terms of if you have any advice for the fleets out there, or brokers are considering using this model. What are some of the pitfalls or maybe lessons learned from your experience building this that you could offer to them?
I think a lot of guys do form the asset side, move into the brokerage arm of things. I mean, there's a couple things going on there. I mean, one is, as an asset carrier, there's only so much that you can do. You have 10 trucks, you can only run 10 trucks. So most asset carriers are turning down freight daily just because they can't handle it. The problem you have, and I applaud those that are forming the brokerages, is the problem we have, and especially in today's carrier world, is we have a lot of rebrokering of loads, but they're not done correctly. So a lot of time carriers are grabbing loads, but they have the excess, like, hey, we can handle it, but maybe their truck falls through, maybe they didn't have a truck. Then they go out and they will just re-give it to another carrier, really without the brokerage knowledge. And I mean, that happens kind of daily in this industry. But the proper way to do that would be exactly what you're saying, is form that brokerage, and let your customers know that hey, my carrier side does not have the capacity. I've got the brokerage arm. They can go out and grab more business. At the end of the day, the real growth, I think, is generally on the brokerage end. I mean, you see brokerages out there doing 100 million with 50 people. Because from an asset perspective, hey, you've got to have the upfront capital. There's a lot more legwork involved, just with dispatching drivers, worrying about their hours of service, vehicle maintenance, et cetera, in terms of the FMCSA standards there.
The last topic I want to touch up on is regarding AB5. I know, obviously that's probably the hottest topic in California right now. And CalFreight seems to be in a pretty unique position in terms of being able to embrace AB5. We'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on how is AB5 impacting or even not impacting CalFreight's business.
Sure. I don't think that the markets have really seen much of what the impacts will be just yet. I think carriers are still trying to figure out, what they're doing, how they're going to accomplish that. From our standpoint, again, we transitioned from that owner operator model, a long time ago. So all of our company assets are set up as such, company equipment, company drivers. So from our perspective, we're not feeling like any pain in terms of something we have to change. There are a lot of carriers out there. I was talking to my insurance agent the other day, and they're a risk management company specifically for transportation as well. But he and I were speaking about some of his clients and the struggles they're going through. I mean, California does have a lot of owner ops, within the markets here, especially in the port and rail dray markets. And he's talking to guys that have 300 300 owner operator fleets, where now they're having to look at, am I going to buy that equipment from them, or do I send those drivers off? They have to form their own LLCs, get their own authority, insurance, etc. So they're coming to a challenge because a lot of drivers don't want to go out and form their own company and have their own authority. So, they're losing capacity, and then outside of that, now they're having to come up with funds to go out and buy equipment. So, I think there's a lot of challenges going on right now in terms of trying to figure that out. I don't necessarily think a lot of people are. I don't necessarily think a lot of the owner operators have transitioned just yet.
Yeah.
So I think as the government figures out how to
Enforce it, I guess.
enforce it. Yeah, enforce it. We're not really going to see what's going to happen there. But my assumption is, capacity is going to shrink here in California, which that in of itself generally is going to drive up rates. And then overall, you're taking into consideration now that the employer's costs are going to go up if they're forming them, into W-2 employees. So your payroll taxes, your health, your 401ks, your benefits. So we figure our what we call burden rate with all that stuff incorporated, about like 38% is what we figure ours at. So it's 38% increase, an employer's cost, if you will, that that they didn't necessarily have before, depending on what they offer to their carriers. But from our perspective, we're looking at it like it should be a gift to us, if you will, because we're already set up to run correctly. So, we're hoping that our customers are going to need more capacity from us, and with the other carriers moving into that asset model, their costs are going to go up. Therefore, the total market cost should go up as well. So, I would assume we'll see some price increases as well. Once it really does, come into effect.
Absolutely. Very interesting. Brian, so for CalFreight right now, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you guys are facing as as a business?
Potential lawsuits are always challenging, and even just with equipment on the road, a lot of, and they've termed it, your nuclear verdicts, and that's driven a lot of companies out of business in the last 10 years, and so I think that a lot of our challenges are, safety is a cost, but it's also a direct correlation, I feel, with our bottom line and with the expansion of our company. You can't operate in this industry improperly without seeing the effects of it. All the greats in this industry, you looked at their safety standards and their records. They're all fairly impeccable, and you can't have growth without it. So I think some of our challenges, again, and I think we've done a lot of it with our company, especially through RMIS with our brokerage side, but it's really staying on top of our safety, making it something that's important, and then continuing to automate and make transparent, a lot of our internal processes, and with our drivers to make sure we're adhering to all the regulations out there. So I think that's always a challenge, and then they're always adding on new rules and kind of standards that you have to adhere by. So that's probably one of our biggest challenges, I'd say, from that standpoint. The other is again, hey, just like everybody else, hey, how do you continue to grow and grow in a safe manner? So I think weekly we're kind of picking the niche industries or the niche markets that we want to be in, that we're good in, not expanding into things necessarily new or trying to reinvent the wheel with what we do that could bring on needless liability. So, I mean, of course, there's always, other challenges. Those are the two that kind of popped to my head at first.
Nice. And so I guess like looking forward a little bit, where do you see CalFreight? What's your goal for CalFreight, or where do you see CalFreight in the next 5 years?
Sure. Where I see it, and where our partners see it, or my father is, he's pretty much semi-retired, so he's kind of let go of the reins a bit. If it was up to him, he'd say, "Hey, I mean, we're good, with where we're at." But I think myself, my brother, and our COO, we're definitely in a growing stage. So, like I said, I think we've grown 6 times over in the last 10 years, and I think the larger you can get, the more resources you can utilize, and especially for tech innovation, and that's big. I mean, tech's not cheap, and it's hard for the smaller guy to go out there and spend 50 grand a year on a new product, or go spend 100 grand on advertising. So I think the larger you get, you gotta be able to pick those areas that make sense and drive value to the company. So, I mean, myself personally, I mean, I would like to see us, I'd like to see us grow by three, in the next 5 years. Um, so, um, so yeah, I mean, that's kind of my vision, in terms of that. But I would like to continue growing. I love the industry, and you get to deal with people every day in this industry. So that's always enjoyable, and things can change day to day. So, you're always learning new things and new ways to solve problems. So, um, yeah, we'll just have to see where it goes.
Nice, love it. All right, Ryan, here's my final question to you.
So,
Looking back at all the success that you guys have seen at CalFreight, how much of it do you think is luck, and how much of it do you think is hard work?
um, I would say, I mean, I don't necessarily believe, in luck per se. I would say it's more hard work. Even when my dad first started, and I don't remember as I was little, but just how much he worked, and even knowing like how much I work, and my brother, and seeing our employees, I believe it's more hard work, and it's giving that undisputable service, to your customers, that's really going to be able to distinguish that, and you can't do that through laziness. So it's just constantly being on top of it, and and making sure our employees, we have a family run company. Even our minority partner has some family here too. So it's more like it's family feel. We're not, this massive corporation. It's not bureaucratic. So, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. All right, Ryan. As a closing remark, can you maybe just tell us about, like, uh, CalFreight, and what the type of service that you guys are providing, or any kind of business priority that maybe we can help you broadcast out to, the wider audience, or anything that you would love to, kind of mention about CalFreight? This is your time to shine.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're always looking for new drivers. We're really, we have drivers driving cross country, Western regional. We have branches in most regional states over here. So, a lot of tanker stuff, a lot of port work. So if you have your tanker endorsements, or TWIC cards, I mean, feel free. We have an online application set up. So our HR is real quick on responding. We're always looking for new agents, brokerage agents that really understand the brokerage side of things, and that specifically speaking, generally, I'd like to have people, that have a book of business, that are self-sufficient. So, um, those are probably the two main areas I can think that, we're really, looking for new people on. So, also you can go to our website for that as well. There is an agent page there, contact form, one of the people on that email. So, if you're interested, or just want some additional information, on either, please head to the website. It's www.calfreight.com. And there's links on there for you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today, Ryan. It's a pleasure to have you.
No, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.